This is M.I.L.E from Cottage Grove, Oregon, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my friend D.Cal.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D.Cal.
And happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D.Cal here at the E.I.T.H.R podcast at our HQ in Northern California. I want to say thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome to episode number 80 of the podcast. Shooting for 100. Can't wait. Never thought we'd make it this far, but at the same time, I never doubted it. For those of you who are new to the podcast, the E.I.T.H.R podcast is an elephant in the room where we talk about discussions and topics and issues that are very difficult to have with your peers. We try to do it from a non-biased perspective, so that way you have more of an informed method of thinking. So even if you choose to continue to disagree with what we're talking about, at least you'll have a better understanding of what you are disagreeing with or possibly decide to agree with. You can follow us on social media. The Instagram and the Twitter is going to be the same at E.I.T.H.R. You can also follow us on YouTube and TikTok, which is under the parent company, which is the GNS Inc. THE GNS INC. For YouTube, please subscribe to that, and you can see the previous 79 episodes, and you can comment with the so on and so forth. You can also download the Spreaker app, SPREAKER. Fill out a profile, and you can chat with me while we're going ahead and doing live podcasts. Today's Friday. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about a key ingredient in most relationships that people tend to miss. We're also going to have somewhat of a perspective in what I feel I would adjust to the XFL to add a little something extra to it. There's also something we're going to talk about when we get down to the nitty-gritty about the new 1%. Okay, so we do inspirational, motivational, and we also give shout outs. I would like to go ahead and give a shout out to California, particularly Northern California. Right now we have some strange weather going on, man. I mean, I'm originally from the Bay Area. I'm originally from the East Bay Area. I lived in Northern California majority of my whole life. Only 1 year did I live out of state. And I don't ever remember seeing snow on this portion of Northern California. So for those of y'all who are making it and surviving in it and driving in it with no snow tires without slipping inside and side showing, good job. Thank you very much for being considerate on the road. Inspirational and motivational. Listen, you guys know the room that you're having conversations with, guys. Okay? Whatever it is that put it to you this way. Someone once told me, if you're dealing with business, you take successful business advice from successful business people and everything else from your friends and family. If you want to learn how to fix a relationship, you talk to people who have been through struggles and gotten over these struggles in relationships. You don't necessarily pay attention to the one friend who can't keep a relationship. If you're trying to do better at work, you talk to the person who is either above you or is continuously excelling at her or his job. You don't talk to the person who can't keep a job. Simple as that. We're going to go ahead and get into this. We also have a segment called What's Your Mile, where we talk about things that you are going to make easy for the previous week. And what do you plan on making easy for the next week? We're going to check that out soon as we get back from this.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with E.I.T.H.R.
Okay, so one thing I want to get into right now is the XFL. Go ahead and knock this out real quick. The XFL, we remember this from a few years ago when it first started. It was more of an alternative to football during the off season. Now, I remember when Vince McMahon had first started this thing early 2000s, and you had a bunch of, I'm not going to say this is not my phrase, this is not my words, these are not the way I would describe it, but people would say washed up players from the NFL, which I think is trash. They're not washed up. These men sacrifice their bodies, and like any other automobile, man, like any other piece of machinery, they got banged around a little bit and had some years on them. So these are for the athletes who have some wear and tear, and they couldn't perform like they used to in their 20s, and they couldn't compete at the level that the NFL wanted. So they came in with the XFL, right? Now, it was fun in the beginning because you had a lot of players who had nicknames on the back of their jerseys. One of the nicknames that we all remember, if you remember the XFL when it first started, was a running back, He Hate Me. Right? He Hate Me. And we remember that character. We remember that dude. And he wound up making it into the NFL. And it never lasted after that. And they kept coming up with different ways to revamp it. And there's been a lot of things that the XFL created, like the Skycam that you now have in the NFL. So that was started in XFL. A lot of ideas that the XFL initiated was transferred to the National Football League. So I'm not going to say it was the guinea pig of the NFL, but it was definitely a platform to try some things out, to see how things worked, to get all the bugs out with the XFL. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is now fast-forwarding, is one of the partners for the XFL. And apparently, week one is usually high ratings for the XFL because people are intrigued, they kind of want to see it, they want to check it out, they want to look at it. By week 2, week 3, a massive slope drop in ratings. It's people will call a flash in the pan. And the reason why people will probably say that is because it's not the NFL. It's trying to be the NFL, critics would say. It's trying to be something that it can't be. It's that professional, that this walk-on is trying to compete like, and you just don't have the moves, you don't have the gravitas, you don't have the backing for it. And I get that argument. I do get that argument. But I feel a lot of these people steer away from it because they don't necessarily know how to be creative. Now, it's easy for me to sit back and say what these people don't know how to do. Right? It's kind of like the Monday morning quarterback, where you tell your quarterback what he should have done after you see the film from your couch or your armchair, right? So I get how that sounds to somebody, but they also don't know how to do anything with something and make it better. They tend to let it do its thing organically, and if it doesn't do it, they walk away from it. But if you ever notice when someone really truly wants something to succeed, like a shitty show or a horrible music band or group or artist, they're going to force feed that to us. They're going to make us like it. Right? It's almost like a hypnotism to doing it, where, well, no one else is saying it's bad, so everyone else must like it. So therefore, I guess it is pretty good. So therefore, I guess I do kind of like it. They tend to have that magic with something that they want to succeed. I think the NFL wants to be the only game in town, and they don't like competition. So here's what I would personally do if I was given the charge to not improve, but to adjust the XFL. The XFL is full of players who no longer can compete, or in my personal opinion, who possibly are no longer marketable to the NFL, who don't have the skill set like they once did, or who no longer have the skill set to begin with, and it's just diminished. They get no playing time, whatever the case may possibly be. They just can't make a roster spot. Here's what I would do. Some people say take it out of major metropolitan cities where there's already a professional team, because that territory is already been marked. That's one way of looking at it. I wouldn't necessarily put it in a major city. I may put it in a city that's adjacent to a major city, that's large enough to have it, but is far enough to where it has its own identity. Then what I would do is I would sit back and create this tryout league. Because let's face it, there's so many people who claim they would have made the tackle. There's so many people who claim they would not have missed that block. There's so many people who claim to be more athletic than what they believe, right? So here's what I would do. I would hold off. I would hold XFL tryouts. Me personally. And I would have people come out. I would have maybe a half an age. Possibly just for liability reasons. But I would also create a waiver that says you are entering into this tryout for the opportunity to compete for a professional team. Any injury that happens during the tryouts of these skills and these drills and running these hills, or we are not liable for this. So it's almost like a open workout session, like a CrossFit or a, what do you call that? Yeah, CrossFit. So you're going to go and do all the drills that you would normally do. And you're going to get evaluated. Simple as that. It'll be off season. So you'll have people who make the team. They're going to compete in these drills as well. So you see cats who are on the squad. So you see who you're competing with. You see who you're playing with. You see who you potentially may be replacing. So you know exactly what it is that you got to do. Okay, cool, great. So here you go. So you're going to do the drills with the sled, you're going to do the weights, you're going to do the agility, you're going to do all these things. If you pass the agility screening test, if you will, then we're going to move on to the next stop, which is going to be practice. But even before that, we got to check your IQ. We got to see what you would do in certain situations. We got to put you in a room, put you in a class to where we run certain plays. They don't necessarily have to be plays out of your playbook, but these can be certain plays and conditions and settings, just like you would in a game. Okay, we're second down in this, we're on this side of the hash, this much time, we got the ball, here's the defense that they're running. Offense, what's your responsibility? What would you play? What would you call? What would you do? And you'll have to either select one of the options for the play or handwrite out, describe exactly what it is that you would do. So now we're going to test the cerebral. We're going to test your football IQ. So we got the skill set, and then we're going to test your brain. So that way we understand, if you will, how much you know about game situations. So when it happens in real life, you're not overwhelmed by it. So then there's going to be another screen for people who are able to do that. I feel with this test, it's going to be not just coaches and executives grading, but you're also going to have players in on the grading system. That way the player gets a feel of what it's like to evaluate, like a scout. And they get to see the players that are applying for the league, what their mindset is. Boom. Whoever passes that next step, congratulations, you've been selected to play for the Berkeley Bombers. Right? The Nevada Stampede. The Merced Monsters. Whatever. Right? Whatever the case may be. Great. Now you're on the squad. Now, just like in college, just like in junior college, there's no compensation, or whatever the compensation may possibly be for the XFL, that's what the compensation is. You guys can negotiate that, hash that out with your contract. But there you go. And you kind of make it to where it's like a Hard Knocks-esque type of thing on TV. So now people at home are watching people who were at home try out to be on the team that they're going to be watching on television. So you're now making it interesting because you make the common man be relatable to the common man who's actually attempting it. So now you give people a reason to root, not just for the team, but also root for the player themselves. I think that's an awesome method of doing it. You get people talking on social media about it. It might get picked up on news channels about what's going on with the XFL. You commentate with the experienced players on there about some of the evaluations, some of the things that goes into it. So now they get to feel coordinator, coach-esque type of feeling. So if they ever decide to get out of playing, or when it's time for them to be done with playing, they have this extra thing on their resume when it comes to coaching, scouting, and evaluating talent. That's how I would do it. So now, when you're on the field, you legitimately have a bunch of people who aren't just has-beens, air quotes, in the NFL, but you have fresh bodies off the couch. And yes, there have been people who made it to the NFL who were stocking groceries, who were driving beer vans, beer trucks. You have people who were DJing, doing security, teaching, and they go out and they make an NFL team. Well, this is no different. Instead of you going behind the scenes to see these people who are making professional teams, you're now doing it for a lower level, which now you have an opportunity to make it to the NFL. And if you didn't make it in the NFL, this ultimately becomes a padded version of the Big Three, but it's football. By the way, you also stimulating the economy because now you're making people want to go out and get in shape. So you got nutrition, you got food, you got gyms, you have all these different places that are now getting people off their asses to go do something. Hell, now someone can even stimulate doing the same exact thing for a women's football league. And I said this before. I do believe in the next 15 years, we're going to have a co-ed roster in the NFL. I do believe it. I really do believe it. So, what do you guys think about that? What do you think about the suggestion about having them do a off-the-couch athletic agility screening than a cerebral game situation testing to have people come in off the street, off the couch, to unplannedly. What say you? Go ahead and hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Instagram. I believe I posted that question on social media. You guys can find that at the E.I.T.H.R. E.I.T.H.R. and give your feedback. You can also go ahead and do the feedback on the YouTube page for episode number 80 or the Spreaker app, where you can download the app, fill out a profile, and chat with me in regards to what you think about the XFL and my idea of how to adjust it to give it a little different spice to it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, the new 1%. I've had this idea in my head about the new 1% for a while. And the new 1% basically says that if you take 1% of the United States population, using the United States as an example, it's like 320 million. I could be wrong. That's 3.2 million people. If 1% of us were to actually get on the same fucking page, I'm not talking about politics necessarily. I'm talking about policies and implementing them. So I've had this theory for at least a few years. But what really, as they say, chaps my hide, really gets my goat, is people who talk but don't do shit. Listen, the government's responsibility is not to fix our problems. The government's responsibility is simply to regulate the solutions to the problem. That's all it is. And I've said this before. We're nothing but children to the government. I'm not saying they're right, but as a people, we sure are not proving them wrong. So what we should do is learn how to fix our own issues, come together jointly to fix each other's issues, and then we can go abroad and fix strangers' issues. Because if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, the United States government has a tendency of saying, fuck what's going on in their own backyard. And they tend to go to other countries and want to fix everybody else's leaky faucet. Well, my opinion on the reason why they do that isn't to be nice. No. It's not to be nice. It's to gain something that the American government can benefit and will be able to have control over. Call me cynical, call me paranoid, whatever you want to. That's usually how government tends to play itself out if you really look at it through history. So they're never going to help the weaker person just to help the weaker person. They're going to help the weaker person because the weaker person has something that will make the American government stronger by partnering with them and by leeching whatever it is that will make us stronger from the weaker person in the battle we're trying to save them from. We then will have control over that weaker person. So when something happens and they sit back and say, all right, cool, America, thank you very much. We're out. Our government can say, whoa, hold on, buddy, come here. Where do you think you're going? No, we need you to do this. And Ukraine will probably say some shit like, no, that's not our battle. That's not between us. That's between you and them. We ain't got nothing to do with that. Yeah, but see, what you don't understand is you allowed us to have access to this. What you didn't think about by giving us access to this, it depleted you of that, and that over there. You see, by giving us the one thing, it took away from three things over there from you. And the only way to get those three things is if we kind of minimize taking the one thing we had in agreement. Or you need the resources from over here And we have a relationship with the one place that you can get resources from that we're taking from you. So if you want to go ahead and build that shit back over there, you're going to do what we say. I don't know if you guys ever paid attention to that, but that seems very realistic about how governments work. They don't do anything for the benefit of anyone other than them, number 1, 2, and 3. So by giving this $500 million assistance to people from this country and shitting on everybody that's in their own country, the government is thinking what we're getting from these people by giving them $500 million is going to help our economy in the long run. It's not to help the people in the long run. It's to help the economy in the long run. And I think a lot of us get blinded by the political bullshit that we don't understand that when they say economy, they don't necessarily mean us. Now, a slick talking politician, in my opinion, will always use key phrases like American people and economy and the public as key phrases to where we feel we can relate to them. But in a politician's world, those terms are very, very vague and universally known for codes of what they're talking about. Economy is business, money, funds, deficit, profits, yield. That's what it means to them. Now, they talk about benefit the American people, usually during election time. And they're going to say all the shit that Republicans are going to start fueling other red states about the bullshit happening in Democratic and liberal states. And the liberal government and media is going to start attacking all the things in conservative and Republican states and talk about their bullshit. So it stirs the nest while these things are going on behind the scenes. But we're too ignorant to realize that. So if 1% of us just got together and said, fuck them, let's do us universally, I think we can change the world. What say you guys? What do you think? Do you think that makes sense? Can you see that vision? Because they sit back and say the American people, but yet they continuously put us in different categories of the American people. Maybe turn the television off and talk to your neighbor. Maybe have a conversation with somebody. Matter of fact, the best thing I think a person should do, have a conversation with somebody who you do not agree with. And instead of forcing your point on them, ask them the question, why do you feel that way? What has happened to make you see it from that perspective? What is it that gives you the viewpoint that this is how it works? Because instead of you waiting for your turn to talk, you might actually hear the piece that's missing from all the information that everyone is saying. Because I've always said this, the news that we watch, it isn't what we see, it's what they're not showing us. And there's some truth that they're hiding from both people. And I've always thought that the news takes the truth and pieces of the truth and makes stories out of those pieces and tell us we're being informed, which is not a lie. It's just not the whole truth. So if 1% of us were to just shut the fuck up, sit down, have a drink with someone who is of the opposing side and say, if you could fix the economy, no government involved, what would you do? And the government understands one thing. We're too lazy and we're too stupid to do this shit on our own. They know this. And if you look at through history, from the 40s, from the 50s, from the 60s, hell, from the 20s to the 30s to current, anytime people actually became one hive mind on anything, the government did a beautiful job of splintering that shit. Because like the late George Carlin said, the last thing they want is a people who has fucking sense. That's the last thing they want. Growing up in Oakland, California, the last thing a pimp wants is a hoe who knows the game. Because she can just sponsor herself. But in order for me to pimp you, I need you to be dumb enough to trust I'm doing this for you, despite me having all the benefits and giving you what I think you can function on. So if the people, 1%, were just to sit back and say, we'll take care from here. We'll house the homeless. We'll feed the needy. We'll clothe the children. We will create a program for kids to come after school. Right? We will patrol our neighborhoods to make sure that we deal with crime collectively. No white neighborhood, no black neighborhood. I think white people, black people, brown people, red people should look at it from this perspective. You have the hood, you have the hills. The hills should come to the hood every now and then, kick it, see what the real life is all about. The hood should be able to go to the hills and see what the good life is all about. Hills come to the hood to be reminded, if you fuck up, this is where you're coming back to for the first time ever in your life. And the hood can go to the hills and get a view and say, man, if we get our grind on, this is where we can be. It's a great lesson for both tax brackets. Instead of being scared you're going to get robbed if you go to North Richmond, or you're going to get arrested if you go to Windsor, people are now okay with going to these different neighborhoods because they're familiar with them. It's almost like if you go to a different country, you see what that country is truly like. You understand the people, you understand the food, you understand the culture. You are now cultured yourself, so you're not bothered when you see certain things. It doesn't fear, you're not fearful of it anymore because you understand it. You can make a conscious decision. You know your way around a little bit more. And I feel what happens is people, they don't go to these neighborhoods, they don't go to these things, they don't do this kind of thing. And so when they see it, they don't know how to respond to it because their only access to it was media. Media meaning what they wanted them to see. So if 1% were to just go against the grain and actually do the steps that Martin Luther King Jr. marched for, by any means necessary, like the late Reverend or the late Pastor Malcolm X once said, if you do that, you would have a bigger impact on your community than any governmental program. Matter of fact, if you want to get the government out of your fucking business, come together with people who don't look like you or live like you. Break bread with those people. You know, do shit that Jesus would do if you're a Christian. You know, do things that Jesus would do. Break bread with those who aren't like you, so you guys can become more like each other. And then you can solve these issues versus doing what a lot of people do, which is wait for the government to fix the problem. I can't stand a person who bitches about issues and then turn around and wait for someone else to fix the issue that they refuse to take part in. Those people piss me off because it's, why aren't you doing anything? Why are you sit back and critiquing someone else's efforts to fix a problem that you have a problem with? What are you doing to deal with that? If 1% of us actually did a collaboration on something at a park, something at a homeless encampment. There's a video of somebody giving homeless people blankets, and that's a gorgeous thing. That's a beautiful thing. But what else? What else? Second thing is, if you did something like this to 1%, would you want it to be televised? Would you want it to be broadcasted? Would you want the world to know about it? Or is this something that you'd rather just keep off the radar? Yes, you spread the word about it. Yes, you spread the word to the world about it. But if your enemy knows your strategy for battle, you will never win the war. I'd rather keep Big Brother out of my information as much as possible. So, what do you guys think? I had to pause the music just to make sure you guys understood what I was saying, because I'm very passionate about this. Very passionate about making a difference. But we can't make a difference if we're sitting on our asses and expecting someone else to fix the problem that we have, right? Because it's never going to be good enough from you. So get off your ass and you do it to your liking. And if it's a betterment for everybody, then we're in good shape. We have a sponsor segment called What's Your Mile, where we talk about what it is that you make easy. What did you make easy last week? What do you plan on making easy next week? We're going to discuss it on the podcast every Friday here at the E.I.T.H.R. We're going to get back and talk about the third option, which is the key ingredient to most relationships, after the word from our sponsor.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at M.I.L.E.today. M.I.L.E.today. www.M.I.L.E.today. A GNS collection.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D.Cal here back at the E.I.T.H.R. podcast. We're going to get into topic number 3 for today's episode. So, on social media, I see a lot of these videos, particularly TikTok. And again, you can follow us at TikTok. You can just the parent company at the GNS Inc. THEGNSINC. And a lot of these videos are people who are very gung-ho on one perspective, or very gung-ho on another perspective. And I'm not saying any of these perspectives are wrong. I'm not saying any of these perspectives are right. But what I am saying is these perspectives are very, very rooted in this method and this method solely. Now, there's plenty of reasons why relationships, intimate relationships, whether it's got a second relationship, homosexual relationship, friendship, family members, father, son, daughter, mother, kids, sister, cousin, mom, uncle, whatever the case may be, why they do not work out. But I'm going to specifically talk about intimate relationships. And again, you can relate this to any type of relationship that I just mentioned prior to. Balance. You must be the individual who balances your partner. And when I say balance, there's a lot of smart ass people out there who's going to have something slick to say because it's the internet and everyone has an opinion, and whether you want to hear their opinion or not, they're going to tell you their opinion. But being able to balance your partner is huge in a relationship, because There are certain things your partner is going to be greater at doing than you are. Face it, deal with it, accept it. There are just certain things that they will be. Some people are better at speaking. Some people are better at drawing. Some people are better at singing. Some people are better at dancing. Some people are better at communicating without words. Some people are better at seducing. Some people are better at reading people, physiology, just the vibe. Some people are just great at thinking outside the box. Some people are great at being traditional. There's a gamut of different things that people in relationships are great at. The problem is when you get two people trying to be equal at two things, when there's key things that are missing in a relationship, and instead of being great at that one thing that you naturally bring to the table, you get two alphas chasing the same thing or trying to do the same thing, and it makes the relationship lopsided. I saw a video, and it made sense to me. The gentleman said, would you date a man who was attempting to be, how did he word it? He said, would you date a man who was equal at wearing the dress in your relationship? Meaning, would you date a man who was trying to be as feminine, equally as feminine as you in the relationship? And she says, no. Okay, then why are you so adamant about wearing the pants equally as him? And she's like, damn, I really don't have a good answer to that. And again, instead of being upset and listening to what I'm saying, hear the message in which I'm speaking. If you have someone who is outgoing, thinks out the box, outspoken, and very, very chiseled, and doesn't work well with communication, and you're outgoing and you're outside the box and you love communicating, the communication is where you balance the relationship. What makes, if you will, a woman great in a relationship, a heterosexual relationship, is not you trying to be equal to me. It's what I lack immensely. That's how we balance. You can be outspoken, you can be outgoing, you can be outside the box. But if you see that I have an issue with communication, where you balance us is being that platform of where I can feel comfortable to talk to. And if I'm horrible at my words, this is where you get to say, okay, now when you said this, what exactly did you mean? Now a man, generally speaking, we're not necessarily great at deciphering words because we're more like, especially old school men, we're more, this is it, that's it. Boom, that's it. You have to help us drill down through that granite ego of ours to figure out the soft part of the communication. So again, when you say this, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean this? Do you mean this? Do you mean this? You have to walk us through this emotional conversation because we're not built for that. We're not that. We're not accustomed to that. We're not really trained in that because we're always told that's soft. That makes a bitch. Right? Ladies, you want men to be honest, you want men to be straightforward, you want men to be tell it like it is until we tell you like it is. And then for the most part, you don't like the way we say it, so therefore you take it, not the way we gave it, but the way you received it. And now we got to go ahead and get annoyed with the drilling of explaining what we meant, which is counterintuitive. So how we balance that is telling you how it is. Sometimes you need to not learn but why? But I don't. And just say, it is what it is. And sometimes along that path, the understanding is discovered. Then it's, this is why he say this is this. Okay. Because some lessons you can be told, some lessons you can see, and then there's lessons you just have to feel. So the balance is understanding where your partner is, for lack of better terms, weaker at, and that's your strength. That's where you come in and bring the reassurance. That's where you come in and bring the safety net. That's where you come in and bring in the safe haven. That's where you come in and be the alpha. And I'm telling you right now, when a man who's shitty at communicating learns how to communicate, you're going to realize and notice the difference in how he approaches you, how he treats you, how he talks to you. When you understand the difference of, instead of being soft and emotional and reactive, and understand the difference of being responsive, intuitive, when he gives a direct response to something, you're going to understand, we're going to do this, knock this out the way, and then once that's done, then we can go back and drill and talk more about it, because the distraction of the task has been over with. A lot of relationships miss balance. What is he good at? What am I good at? What is she great at? What am I great at? What are they a little bit not good at cooking? Okay. Hey babe, you wanna come over for dinner? Well, yeah. Okay, cool. I was thinking about doing something different. You know that meal that you like so much, the one that I make? Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to help me cook. I'm going to walk you through how to make this meal. We're going to make this together. That bonding moment is huge, extremely huge. But so many people don't understand that. They miss that part. They can't grasp that part because no one educates them on that part. Again, if you're able to just do that, it makes a big difference, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you right now from experience. If you're able to just find and discover that one portion that you are slightly more vetted at than your partner. It can be a friendship. You have a friend who's antisocial, who doesn't get out much. That's fine. You and your bestie, you guys go somewhere to something stupid, something small, to a Starbucks. Sit in the lobby. One of the things I used to do when I was in training for my fragrance business is for people who are really skittish on discussing people in public. They were very afraid of approaching people. They were very afraid to talk to strangers because they were new. Especially if I was training that person. What I would do is I'll say, okay, follow me. And I'll talk to people, I'll approach them. Hey, crazy question. Do you have to wear men's cologne? You know, like Dolce & Gabbana, Usher, Blueberry, Cool Water, great. In the training program, the M.I.L.E business, I'm just showing some samples today. Whatever the spiel was. And I would do this for a couple people. And the person I was with, I would have them pitch me. Give me your spiel. Give me the script. Say it. And I would critique them. And they'll be comfortable. And you can tell like they were getting anxious because they knew it, but at the same time they didn't know it, but they knew enough to where they felt confident to do it, but they didn't feel confident enough to do it. So what I would do, and I was like, hey, excuse me, man, quick question. Hey, sorry to bother you, but my partner here had a question to ask you. And I would walk off. I would never forget the day I would do this to new people. Because they were expecting for me to talk to this random stranger in the parking lot, at the gas station, in the liquor store, in the business. Because they see me do it all day. So then I would just simply say, excuse me, man, I'm sorry to bother you, but my partner here had a question to ask you. And I would simply turn and look at them. The shock on their face was like, what do I do? I said, what we've been training all day. But we would have that conversation in eye contact. And my smirk was very asshole-ish. Because I knew it was uncomfortable for them. I knew they hated me for it. And I got a kick out of it because I was an asshole of a trainer like that. And after they fumbled and stumbled and drooled on themselves and dropped the bottles and dropped the caps and dropped the boxes and and just totally turned flush and red and stuttered. And I'm smiling with the same smirk the whole time. And the customer's looking at everything like, oh my God, they're so new. And they would be patient enough to let them struggle through the whole thing. Sometimes they would get fragrances. Other times they wouldn't get fragrances. People, whether they did or they didn't, most of the time would give them some type of words of encouragement. The assholes who walked off gave them a shot of reality. And I would turn around and I would keep walking and their faces looked as if they realized shit gets real in these streets. If you have a partner who is antisocial, maybe, just maybe, do what I would do. Randomly spark a conversation with somebody and then ask them a question about a topic that you and your friend had earlier and say, well, me and my buddy were here having a conversation about such and such and so and so. What do you think about that? And that new person's going to have the conversation. They're going to give their opinion. And then you're going to either say, see, that was my point. Oh, okay, so you two basically you guys think alike. Okay, so you're ganging up on me. Is that what's going on? Now what you're doing is you're breaking the ice of the conversation. And now you have your friend who is now antisocial is getting accustomed to talking to strangers in today's world of people being antisocial and talking to strangers. Same thing in relationships. Like I gave the example of cooking. Now your partner who doesn't know how to cook, they at least now know how to cook that meal that they love when you make for them. So now they know how to cook that meal when they see that you're having a bad day. And you're going to understand, damn, she knows having a bad day, so she made this meal. Because she knows what this meal means because she just made it. Damn, that's how you make a relationship balance. Find where your partner is not so strong and you train them. Air quotes, when train, hopefully you get the analogy I'm talking about training. The 3 steps to make a relationship work is communication. But guess what? Communication is not fucking key. Communication is the door. Because if a motherfucker can't comprehend your communication, you can't get through the door. So communication is the door. Comprehension is the lock. Because if I can't comprehend your communication, it doesn't matter what you say. It's irrelevant. And the final step, compromise. Communication, comprehension is the door and the key. But that key don't work if it doesn't have a lock to go with. So you have to compromise. This is what you don't appreciate that I do in a relationship because it makes you feel a certain type of way. These are the things that you do in a relationship that I don't appreciate that makes me feel a certain type of way. How do we compromise? Do I need to stop doing this? Do you need to get thicker skin? Do I need to be a little more sensitive? Do I need to be more aware? Do you need to be a little bit more durable? You compromise. Once you communicate, once you are able to comprehend what the problem is, and then you come to a you guys come to a compromise. Why am I struggling with this word? Once you're able to compromise, the situation, then that door can open. Those are the 3 steps. But the key ingredient is knowing how to balance your partner. I don't want a woman who is everything like me. Because then it's like, what the fuck I need you for? I have me to do all that. I don't need 2 of me to do what I can do alone. What I need you to do is all the things that I'm horrible at. All the things that I don't like to do. In addition to the things that I need you to do. That's the balance that a lot of people just tend to forget or ignore or don't even comprehend. That's what they should do in a relationship. Right? So, in my opinion, that's the main ingredient in a relationship. You have to know what it is that you're interested in, and also understand too, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Know what you want. And in order for you to know what you want, you have to be able to know yourself. And if you don't know what you want, then you can't say what you see in somebody else, because that can all just be a facade. It can just be a phase. It can be a temporary illusion. It can just be a momentary excitement. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what you're into. It's just probably what tickles your fancy. And once your fancy is tickled and you're done laughing, you're done with it. So, rocket ship, spaceship. You want something that's fast and exciting but doesn't last long? Or you want something that takes fucking forever to gain the momentum but is on a steady course to inevitability, to infinity and beyond? What do you want? You pick the poison. But you got to be able to do the 3 steps, and you have to do the main ingredient in order for a relationship to work. And I feel, from my experience, that's one thing in today's world a lot of people tend to be lacking. They tend to miss. I don't know if again, I was watching E.I.T.H.R early today, Marvel movie. Came out nearly 10 years ago. Damn. And it was the part where Steve Rogers and Tony Stark was chopping wood at the safe house. And they were having this discussion about Ultron. If you've seen the movie, then you know what part I'm talking about. And it made me realize Steve Rogers and Tony Stark is the epitome of the conversation going on between a then generation and a person from now generation. Because Tony's perspective was, we created this being to stop all this so that way the team doesn't have to necessarily exist and we can just go about our days. And Steve Rogers' perspective was, any person who tried to stop a war before it happens, innocent people die. Tony was trying to argue the fact that that's not necessarily the case, and Cap is saying, throughout history, that has always been the case. And I think a lot of people in a now generation, they think what's going on in their world is different than what's going on in the world before them. And so, therefore, people just don't get it. And it's not understanding, bro. History repeats itself for people. It repeats itself. Anyway, Thank you very much, guys. I haven't had a podcast this long in a long time. Felt pretty good. Tell me, what do you think about the relationship, the key ingredients, the 3 steps? You can follow us on social media, the E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E, E.I.T.H.R. You can follow us on YouTube, the GNS Inc. You can also follow us on TikTok, the GNS Inc. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Download the Spreaker app, Spreaker. It's your boy D-Cal. You guys have a great weekend. Be safe. We'll talk to you guys next week. Oh, make it look easy before I forget. I don't want to forget. So last week, to make it look easy, my goal was to do my list of to-do list. It was to make more content for social media, and it was to do a to-do list to help me keep everything more organized. And I kind of broke down the different type of charts you guys can do. The A, B, and C, high priority, mid priority, last priority type of thing. This week, I also did a make it look easy of you know what I want to do? My goal is to get one other person with a film completed to distribute to the GNS ETV brand. So that way, by next week, I should have some content for people to watch on our internet television channel. That's my make it look easy. So I'm going to try to convert movie directors or producers out there who have anything to use our platform. What is your mile? What is something that you plan on doing next week or doing for next week that you feel is difficult today, but is your homework assignment to do? So that way, next week you can participate in What is Your Mile? All right? Again, you guys have a great weekend. Thank you very much for checking this out. Hope all is well. Be safe. Till next time.